Well, in the aftermath of the death of Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, attention has turned to who will succeed him. While the power vacuum is likely to be filled soon, there's still concern among the global Iranian diaspora for family and friends caught up in the conflict. Tara Kangarlou is an Iranian-born journalist and Middle East expert, and she joins me now from London. Tara, good to have you with us today. Now, numerous reports and analysis are emerging that Ali Larijani, the head of Iran's powerful Supreme Security Council, will likely be the country's next supreme leader. Do you believe that's the likely scenario, at least in the short term?
Thank you for having me in this very fast-moving and precarious story that's really having the entire region ablaze. About Larijani, indeed, he's one of the most powerful figures within the Islamic regime. So anything is on the table. I don't think we're going to see immediately a new supreme leader emerge. The Iranian regime at the moment is in shambles, trying to contain the heavy Israeli strikes against the country, and of course engage in its retaliatory attacks in the region. But most certainly, Mr. Larijani is someone that, if the regime stays intact and in power in Iran, will most certainly have some role in its future. Mind you that he's a conservative figure. He's a son of a prominent a cleric. His wife actually is the daughter of one of the founders of the Islamic Revolution. He was a confidant of the supreme leader. He was part of the nuclear negotiations. So some sources in Iran are telling me that, again, if the regime stands in some shape or form intact, he might lead the sort of foreign policy file. But I think we are steps from that. I think at the moment, the way these waves of attacks have been hitting Iran's infrastructures, we can easily say that the regime has been infiltrated on its intelligence, military, and leadership apparatus, and they have taken a blow indeed.
Yeah, so that begs the question, whether the regime, in whatever form it takes up, will be doing so in the capacity that it did as of 3 days ago.
The regime is going full force, and we have to understand the complexity of Iran's IRGC apparatus. The country, of course, has its military that's tasked for sort of the overall security of the country's borders and engaging in conventional war. But then it has the paramilitary, the IRGC forces, that have an extremely powerful missile arsenal. And, the drones that, for instance, we've seen in the war in Ukraine, the Shahed drones, have all been supplied by Iran, and they are going in full force. And mind you that within the IRGC apparatus, there are multiple layers. So the idea that we think the Iranian regime and government is sort of a monolithic, linear system, it's not. It's quite complex. And mind you, that they have been prepared for this day. They saw this coming, and while over 48 heads of state and government officials and IRGC figures have been killed and hit, they seem to be continuing to move forward. Now, to what end? Is the intention to pressure the Gulf countries, to then have them put pressure on the United States and Israel to cease fire? That is yet to be seen. But as of last night, I will say President Trump, who has been, by the way, taking calls with reporters, said we have hit multiple targets, sank 9 ships, and have contained IRGC's entire military command and control center.
Yes. And Trump is, putting now the onus on the Iranian people to create or to topple the Islamic regime. Is it realistic for civilians who oppose the regime within Iran to challenge the regime, given its military prowess? The IRGC is still a force to be reckoned with, at least within Iran's borders.
Excellent question. And I want our viewers to understand that Iran is a country of 90 million. And I can easily tell you that at least 20 million of this large population are tied to the regime, whether that be ideologically or financially. Just the previous election, we had 13 million Iranians vote for an extremely conservative figure, okay? So there are people in this country that are tied to this regime. Now, some would argue that half of them would jump ship, okay? So let's put that aside. Then you have millions of people in this country that have been choked, isolated, and repressed by the brutal forces at home, as we saw back in January, with thousands killed. And these are the people who want to move beyond the regime. And in the words of a woman that I spoke with just yesterday, she's been part of the protest. She said, there is a sea of blood between us, meaning ordinary civilians and people, and the regime. And we want this page to turn. So indeed, the majority of the Iranian people would want to move beyond the regime. The big question is how. Many of them are confused. We have to understand that Iran's economy is in shambles. The country is experiencing a financial free fall. People's purchasing powers is at its lowest point. And over 50% of the population are living under the poverty line. So at a time that people are struggling to put bread on the table, and on top of that being repressed perpetually by their regime, the idea of them with empty hands taking control and somehow forming a new government is a bit wishful, perhaps, in absence of a strong opposition force within the country. And I say within the country because I want to underscore that any form of dissent have been quailed over the years, and some of Iran's brightest who can be decision makers in a secular democracy in Iran are in prison. So the situation is far from linear, but rather complex. And then you have the region. And quite frankly, I've covered the Middle East extensively. And if you ask ordinary people, they will tell you that history has shown us that bombs and airstrikes have not brought peace, prosperity, and democracy anywhere. But again, sentiment in Iran among most people is that we want to move beyond this regime. How that's possible and feasible, they yet to know and see. And they know one thing, that if the system remains, perhaps the conservative powers that would take control would be even more ruthless. And this is according to people that I've been speaking with on the ground.
Yes, Tara, if I can ask you briefly, just because we are running out of time, so many pictures of the diaspora we have seen in London, where you are, in Australia, where I am, but also in the US, celebrating the downfall of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. But the regime is still in control there. What do the diaspora expect the US president to do right now?
Some people in the diaspora, the images that we're seeing, of course, have been supportive of Donald Trump's actions because they believe somehow in this vision that he's going to bring peace and stability and democracy to Iran and the Iranian people. How that's possible, we yet to see. I think we're all very unclear as to what Mr. Trump's plan is. He said that he is ready to talk to Iran's leaders, but at the same time, he said future leaders, some of them have been hit. A lot of wait and see, but the diaspora is, of course, longing for their country to become free, and so that many of them perhaps would go back, but that's a wish that almost all Iranians have, a free, prosperous Iran. How we get there, lots of confusion and lack of clarity.
All right, Tara Kangarlou in London, many thanks for sharing your thoughts with us on the program.